Well, we've been looking at Luke chapter 15. I appreciate all of you that have been commenting and just sharing the videos, letting me know that you guys are watching. I'm looking at the Luke 15, the parables of the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost son, or the prodigal son. And the first one is the lost son, the lost coin. In my Bible, it says you're the lost son. It really should be the lost sons, because there's two sons in this story. And what Jesus is communicating is that there's one son who goes off and disgraces his father, takes a third of his father's inheritance for him, doesn't wait till his father dies, wants it immediately so he can go do what he wants with it, and he goes and he blows it on, and it says wild living, it says on prostitutes, and so he just blows through his money. He's foolish, he's irresponsible, he's dishonored and disgraced his father. And a lot of times in the Jewish culture or the Middle East, a son who would do this would be disowned from the family. At times they would actually hold a symbolic funeral to state that son is dead to us. He is dead to the family. And then we get to verse 25, and now the older brother comes into this parable in this story. So let's read in Luke 15, verse 25. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field, and when he came near the house, he heard the music and dancing. So he called one of his servants and asked him, "What's going on?" "Your brother has come home," he replied, "and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound." And the older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, "Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him." "My son," the father said, "you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." Now look at what's happening here. The people that are hearing this, remember, Jesus is telling this parable to the older brothers in the crowd. They understand, the religious leaders understand that in this story, the older brother represents them, because he says, I never disobeyed you. Right? I'm doing everything that the law says. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to. But look at the attitude of this older brother, this son of yours. He doesn't go into the party. Now he is the one who is dishonoring the father. The father is celebrating. It's an incredibly happy and joyous day for him. And somebody comes in and says, "Sir, master, your older son, he won't come in. He's outside." And now he has to leave the party and go outside and plead with the older brother to come in. And the other brother doesn't even recognize his brother as a brother. He says, "This son of yours," right? He's no brother of mine. He's this son of yours who did all this stuff. And you give him this big party? How can you be doing this? And at the end, the dad still says, "No, this brother of yours, right? Your brother, you can't disown him. He's family." But the older brother is angry that the younger brother's come back. He doesn't want the younger brother in the family. Probably one of the happiest days in his life was probably when the brother left, because now he had his father. And he wasn't worried about the father. He was worried about the father's things. He wasn't happy that the father was now happy because the son was back. He was worried about all the stuff the father was spending, because now everything that was left was his. Everything else, the younger brother took his stuff. Everything else would one day now go to the older brother. And now the father is using it on the younger brother. And this angers the older brother. Tim Keller, in the book that I mentioned to you, he talks about when he started his church. And after a few years, he says they had about 300 people or so attending. And they asked him, "Who's coming to your church?" And upon reflection, I answered that it was about 1/3 non-believers, 1/3 believers, and 1/3 recovering believers or younger brothers. And what he's saying is that there are a lot of younger brothers who have left home because they chased the world, and then sometimes because they've been chased out by the religious, legalistic spirit in the church, by older brothers who hate them, who want nothing to do with them. And his warning is that we can be truly believers, truly born again. We can be younger brothers who have run off into the world and then came to our senses, just like the younger brother, and come back to God, and then turn into older brothers. Or he says it this way, or become older brother-ish, where we forget, and we do this as parents, don't we? We forget how wild and stupid and crazy we were when we were kids. And we can become so strict. We become our parents at times, right? And we're like, whoa, I sound just like my dad. I sound just like my mom. Well, in the church, we need to understand, as older brothers, we're the mentors. We're the father, the parental figures to the younger ones, and understand that it's not okay to sin, but understand the grace that we need to show is the same grace that Jesus shows to all of us when we all sin. So he gives two stories that I want to share with you today, because they're good ways to illustrate. They're almost modern day parables to illustrate the older brother who was serving God. But it says, how did he describe it? I was slaving. So he really wasn't serving God, he was serving himself. So in these two stories, let me read them to you. One is about, it says this: one day Jesus said to his disciples, I'd like you to carry a stone for me. He didn't give any explanation. So the disciples looked around for a stone to carry. And Peter, being practical sort, sought out the smallest stone he could possibly find. After all, Jesus didn't have any regulations on weight or size. So he put it in his pocket. Jesus then said, follow me. And he led them on a journey. About noontime, Jesus had everyone sit down. He waved his hands, and all the stones turned to bread. He said, now it's time for lunch. When in a few seconds, Peter's lunch was over, right? Because he just had a little tiny rock. One swallow and his bread was gone. When lunch was done, Jesus told them, stand up, he said. I'd like you to carry a stone for me. This time, Peter said, now I get it. So he looked around and saw a small boulder. He hoisted it on his back, and it was painful. It made him stagger, but he said, I can't wait for supper. Jesus then said, follow me. And he led them on a journey. Then Peter barely being able to keep up. Around supper time, Jesus led them on to the side of the river, and he said, now everyone throw your stones into the water. They did. Then Jesus said, follow me. And he began to walk. Peter and the others looked at him dumbfounded. And Jesus sighed and said, don't you remember what I asked you to do? Who were you carrying the stone for? Right? Each time he says, I want you to carry a stone for me. Well, Peter was thinking, of himself. First, small, little tiny stone. The second time, let me get a big stone because it might turn into bread for me. And Jesus is saying, who were you? You were carrying the stone for yourself when you should have been carrying it for me. And here's another one that illustrates it even better. He says, once upon a time, there was a gardener who grew an enormous carrot. So he took it to his king and said, my lord, this is the greatest carrot I've ever grown or ever will grow. Therefore, I want to present it to you as a token of my love and respect for you. The king was touched and discerned the man's heart. So as he turned to go, the king said, wait, you are clearly a good steward of the earth. I own a plot of land right next to yours. I want to give it to you freely as a gift so that you can garden it all. And the gardener was amazed and delighted, and he went home rejoicing. But there was a nobleman at the king's court who overheard all this. And he said, if this is what you get for a carrot, what if I give the king something better? So the next day, the nobleman came before the king, and he was leading a handsome black stallion. He bowed low and said, my lord, I breed horses, and this is the greatest horse I've ever bred or ever will. Therefore, I want to present it to you as a token of my love and respect for you. But the king discerned his heart and said, thank you, and took the horse and merely dismissed him. The nobleman was perplexed. So the king said, let me explain. The gardener was giving me the carrot, but you were giving yourself the horse. I think it reflects kind of the older brother here, right? He's serving And he's doing everything that the Father has asked, but he's not doing it for the Father. He's doing it for what he expects to get in return. So this man, he wasn't giving the king the horse. He was really giving it to himself, thinking, I'm going to get something better. So why are we serving the Lord? Why has your faith become slavish, like this older brother said? Have we become more focused on the rules than the relationship? Think about that, and think about how you see your relationship with God, and think about how you see your relationship with your younger brothers, with those that are newer in Christ, with those who are lost and aren't a part of the kingdom yet. And how do we view them? And let's always just remember, let's be like Jesus, because in this parable, Jesus is representing the true older brother who said to his father, I will go and I will seek the younger brother who was lost. In the first parable, something is lost and someone goes and looks for it, the lost sheep. The second one, the coin is lost and someone goes and looks for the coin. In the third parable, the younger brother is lost and nobody goes to look for him. But what Jesus is letting us know is it's not just the younger brother. It's both brothers that are lost. Those that are running off wild in the world and those that are trying their best to be good, they're both lost. And it's only through both humbling themselves and saying, Father, I'm sorry. I ask for your grace and your forgiveness, that he brings us into the banquet. So the Lord bless you as you think about this. I ask you to keep, sharing the word. And if you think of someone who might need to hear this, just go ahead and share it with them as well. The Lord bless you. Hope you tune in on Sunday as we'll be talking about this parable. And then next week, we're going to be looking at chapter 16, the parable of the shrewd manager, which is a parable that honestly, I had never preached on until just a few years ago when I read two different books, one called Oikonomics and one called You're Living, I Think It's a Better Life. I'll share that with you next week. Totally put this parable in perspective, because it was really confusing to me until I read those books and it brought it into perspective. So I look forward to sharing that with you next week during the devotionals and then the following Sunday through the message. Lord bless you.